You know there's only 5 effects you need to mix a song that sounds as good as the pros? Reverb and delay, I'm counting those as one, saturation, EQ, compression, and a stereo imager. This simplifies the mixing process so much because every decision is based around those 5 effects. No need to confuse it with anything else, right? Now, by no means am I a professional mixing engineer, nor have I had any formal training. These are just some techniques I've discovered over the past 13 years producing music, and I hope they help you achieve professional mixes too. Now think of mixing like this. The aim of mixing is to perfectly place each instrument into its own space. To the front, to the back, to the left or right, mono or stereo. Think of it like a 3D space around your head, and you can place instruments anywhere inside. But it's important to approach mixing with an open mind. Mixing is a creative process and can help you develop your own sound. But there are some guidelines that can help you when mixing, and it's important to understand these before doing anything too crazy. This table represents where a typical EDM song places their instruments. So generally, the bass, the kicks, snares, leads, guitars, and vocals will all sit mono, and most of those will sit forward. Hats, percussion, pianos, and other instruments sit wider and further back, and things like effects sit wider and further back again. Now this table can be handy when mixing, but the most powerful tool for better mixes is using a reference track. Why figure it all out yourself when you can get the help of a pro? Pick a song that has a similar vibe to yours, drag it into your track, and set the fade to -6 dB. By the way, if you're wondering about this mixing template, I've left a download link in the description below, along with the mixing table from before. It's all set up for mixing and mastering and will help guide you through the mixing process. So before you start mixing, it's always a good idea to save a second copy of your track and call it blah blah mixing. This way, if things start getting out of hand, you can revert back to the original and start again. Okay, so let's start mixing. So the first thing you want to do is just remove all of the effects from every track, except for effects that might be really important, like a lead reverb in the synth itself or something like that. And then you can add an EQ to every track and add a low cut up to 120 Hz. And the high sounds like claps and shakers, you can just keep raising the low cut until you hear it cut into the sound and then back it off a little bit.
And I've been thinking about you.
Make sure not to cut too much from your vocals because they'll sound really thin and empty. Alright, so now it's time to start balancing. So lower the volume of every track in your mix except for the groups, and then raise the kick back into 0 dB. Now you can bring all the other instruments in. Generally I start with the bass and I find a nice balance with that and then bring in the other instruments, but this one I started with the piano. Once you have all your instruments in, you can start to bring in the vocals. Start with the main vocal first, and then follow that by the backing vocals.
And I've been thinking about you. I've been thinking about you. Been thinking about you. I've been thinking about you.
Now we have our track balance, it's time to start using the 5 effects. First up, I'm going to use the compressor to sidechain every group to the kick. You can also sidechain some drum elements to make it sound more groovy. So now we can move on to delay and reverb. Generally these are used to push things back in the mix, but they also work great on vocals to help fill everything out.
I've been thinking about you. And I've been thinking about you. I've been thinking.
Now saturation and EQ can be used together to help things really cut through the mix, like a snare or a kick. You can also do this on your vocals, but be warned that a saturator might add some unwanted grit.
And I've been thinking about you, about you, you. I've been thinking about you. I've been thinking about you, you.
I didn't think the leads were loud enough here, so I'll turn them up a little bit.
I've been thinking about you, you. I've been thinking about you.
Now the utility is used to make things sound wider, but I actually find that using Ableton's filter delay has a better sound. So now you have the chorus balanced and mixed, we can move on to the verse and balance that with the chorus.
I've been thinking about you. I've been thinking about you.
And the last thing to bring in is Foley and background effects.
I've been thinking about you. I've been thinking about you, you.
Now the bass didn't sound punchy enough for me, so I added some compression and EQ to really help with that.
About you. I've been thinking about you.
Alright, now for some extra mixing tips. Now I like to add a mix gel compressor onto every group. This really helps glue things together.
I've been thinking about you.
And to make your tracks fill out a lot more, I like to add some rear bus compression.
I've been thinking about you. I've been thinking about you, you. I've been thinking about you.
Another really cool trick is to add some automation to make your verses quieter than your choruses.
I've been thinking about you, you. And I've been thinking about you.
So now to prep for master. A lot of mastering engineers will want 6 dB of headroom. So on the master, just turn off this utility and that will give you that 6 dB.
I've been thinking about you.
Then just bounce out your track to 24-bit, 44.1 Hz and you're good to go. You should also smash that like and subscribe button and check out some of these other videos.